What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Comedy Pop-Up Podcast. If you're in the LA area, we have 2 live shows coming up. December 5th, we're going to be at the Common Space Brewery in Hawthorne, California. And December 11th, we're going to be back at the Ha Ha Comedy Club. For more information on any of these shows, or any of our future shows, please check out our website, comedypopupla.com. All right, let's start the show.
All right, guys, welcome to the Comedy Pop-Up Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Antonio. We have a great show for you guys today. 2 dope, amazing comics that we're happy to have in studio. The first comic I want to introduce, you know him from his many appearances on All Def Digital, the Podaholics Comedy Network.
Which is going under.
Is it?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, subscribe to the Comedy Pop-Up Podcast Network
exactly.
because we're stepping in. He also has over 80 million views on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks that that's your like credit now.
What'd you do?
It's just from multiple multiple. Yeah. The comments are all negative on that one.
You know, my favorite comment on one of your videos is?
Oh,
it's
God.
Just, no. It just says, I like that guy. And it has like 100 upvotes on that comment.
If you look at the All Def Digital one, which for those that don't know, All Def Digital was formerly Russell Simmons All Def Digital, and then it came out that he was a sex offender or whatever, allegedly. Yeah, exactly. Put that out there. And so then they just changed it to All Def. But it was black owned, black run, and I'm usually like one of the only white people involved in it. And so all the comments anytime I'm in a video, it's just like, what's this cracker doesn't know about our culture, and get this fat white boy off here and all this. I'm like, let's go feel
You
the
couldn't
love.
front a black guy? What's happening?
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see if they're offended by somebody who's named Big Irish J.
Yeah.
It's Big Irish J, Jay Hollingsworth. What's up?
Yeah, thank you.
That was all one intro.
Yeah.
That's how they're going to introduce you before you come up now at your next show with that entire paragraph. And our other guest, she just released a comic book called Comics. Your current album, I Am Not the Hero of This Story, was #1 on the iTunes and Amazon comedy charts.
#3, Without a Bullet on Billboard. Without a Bullet. Important.
What's that mean?
That means that it showed up at #3 and then it went away.
Oh,
It did not go to #2 or #1. But you know what? I had never been on Billboard before. So
that's congrats.
It was a win.
That's awesome.
You also have a podcast with Lori Kilmartin called The Jackie and Lori Show.
Oh, I love Lori.
And my own podcast, The Dork Forest, 13 years
Forest.
in. Got
13 years in.
Got
on
it on the
podcast
ground floor, something that does not make any money,
13
guys.
years.
Come on down, dorkforest.com.
It is the wonderful Jackie Kashian.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for
What's
having me.
up? You know what's crazy about that? So 13 years ago, 2005, right? I can kind of do math a little bit.
Congrats.
I did have to think twice on that one.
You're like, I'm in high school. I'm watching things.
I was in elementary school.
There we go.
But you know what my favorite thing is? So I got into podcasts in like 2008, like submitting for one.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was like ground floor. So 2005, you were one of the OGs.
Well, except for that, I think that there was somebody, like, I know that Jimmy Pardo beat me by 3 months with Never Not Funny.
Wow.
Don't think it's not an issue. Throw down. No. And then, but I know that there was some muckety mucks and a bunch of noobs who got in like 2003, 4 when it was kind of first invented, like essentially audio nerds who knew how to do it. I started out doing sort of idiot podcasting where it was just a giant conference call. I think, what was it? Sound of Young America. Remember that?
I don't.
Okay, it was a kind of a big website back in like 2006. They reviewed my podcast and they said, it sounds like someone is holding a phone up to AM radio. And if you listen to those episodes, and you can, it does. Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. Good luck. Good luck with that. So
I think that's Colin Quinn and I think it might have been Bobby Kelly. They used to do, I think on the phone, the same idea, you know?
Yeah, Bob Kelly swears that he has the earliest comedy podcast. That's like his claim.
Do it.
You know what, dude?
You know what? That can't possibly matter. It can be yours. Take it. Run with it.
Right? When talking about content, not a lot of people talk about who just had the first one. It's like, but was it good?
Right. There's, like, because sometimes there's comics, it's like the dinosaurs of comedy. Well, sometimes... like I was just talking, we were just talking about how long we've been doing stand up, and I'll work with this guy and it'll be some super oldie McOlderson dude, and which means he's 10 years older than I am, right? And he's like, "Yeah, I remember I started in '79. When did you start? Like '95 or whatever?" And I usually say what I said to you guys, which was I count the '80s as 1 year,
Right.
Yeah. But I started in '84, and so those 6 years were a mess because I was trying also to graduate from college because my sister insisted that I graduate, and so but whenever like those, it's always those people who are like, I got in, I was early. You've never heard of me, but I've been doing this forever for no reason.
Yeah,
but that feels mean too because maybe they were doing it because they love it. Jackie, how about that? Why don't we give them that?
Love of the game.
I know, right? But that's always hilarious too. Is like I wouldn't be bragging about that. It's like I'm one of the OGs, and it's like, well, all right, we were talking about people filming their special 2 years in. It's like,
yeah.
That's showtime.
Happy for y'all. Y'all. Can I open for you? Can I please open for you?
Yeah, I was just in El Paso, and there's this young kid. I can't remember his name, and I guess he's been doing like 4 or 5 years, and I was there with Joey Medina, and we both were like, this kid is so talented. Like, he's good looking, he's funny, he does impressions, he can sing, he does all this. And we were like,
I've only been doing it 2.5 years, but it was close enough.
Yeah. And we're like watching this kid. And so every time I went on, I was like, I was complimenting him, like, yeah, I hate him, I'd shit on him or whatever. And then, sometimes the crowd laughs, sometimes they'd be like, oh, and I'm like, relax, I'll probably be begging him for a spot in a year as he's doing theaters,
I remember when I met Nick Swartzen, and he's Minneapolis comic. I'm Minneapolis comic.
Oh, okay.
And I think he's like, he's probably 6 years younger than I am, maybe 9. And so I met him, he was 19. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, this kid's going to be amazing. And then, 3 years later, he's blown up, and he's the Barks root beer kid. And he did a national, which got him enough money to move out here, which got him enough money to, to sort of the nest egg kind of thing. And he just blew the hell up. And I was like, couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Right.
He was a really nice kid at the time. And, but I was like, oh yeah. Yeah, that's. I'm gonna need him to come on my podcast maybe one day and give it a bump.
I know, right? Get those numbers spiked up.
Yeah, who doesn't want the bro dude to be, because his audience is kind of bro duty,
but he's fratty, very fratty,
and he's a super nice guy. But you look at like. It doesn't. I was just saying this to Kill Martin. It doesn't matter how nice Joe Rogan and Tom Segura are to me. Their fans are super bro dudes.
Oh yeah.
And you're just like, those guys are kind of douchebags. So, but I like Tom, and I don't know Tom Rogan. Joe Rogan. I couldn't pick him out of a lineup. Yeah. I'm sure he's. I know he's famous. I know he's an enormous big fucking deal, and I hope it all works out for him. I think it will. I don't think he's living check to check.
That's what I wanted to throw shade at Joe.
Yeah, there you go.
Be like, come on, Joe.
Trying to be supportive, and then it always falls apart. And you're like, why aren't you famous? Oh, that's right, because you keep talking.
All right, so you just had a comic book come out, which was amazing. So comics.
Yeah,
right?
the Starburns, which is owned by Dan Harmon, he wants to write he wants to do comic books. He wants to do all the things Dan Harmon would like to do them, and he is good at all of them. So he gets to, and so he had a project that he didn't call me, like somebody in his organization called me or emailed me and said, would you be willing to write a story for this anthology comic book? And I was like, yeah, I've always wanted to get into comic books. Yeah, so I didn't know it was a Kickstarter thing. Like, I've yet to see any money, and it's fine. It funded because Patton Oswalt wrote one.
Oh wow!
And Sarah Benincasa wrote one, and I wrote one, and other people wrote them. Anyway, but it was super fun. And the woman who did the art on it was this woman named Sarah Bruni, Brunni, I think it is, and she was outstanding. She was amazing work that she did. And so what I ended up doing was I took. Because I didn't know what I was doing. Like, it wasn't like I was hired to write Spider-Man, right? So I just took sort of a long bit out of my act and fleshed it out, turned it into a comic book strip, a script, and then they drew it.
Nice.
So is it? I'm so interested in this because growing up, I collected comics, and so I love all comic book stuff. So is it like maybe? I guess in general, have you seen the other ones other than your own?
Yeah.
Okay. So are they like, are you creating like a superhero or?
You could do whatever you want.
Oh, okay. So yours wasn't though.
Mine wasn't. Mine was autobiographical, but so was almost everybody else's. And Patton's had like sort of a superhero angle to it. I think his was about the superheroes who dress up on Hollywood Boulevard. So I think that's what his was about.
Interesting.
So he did do Spider-Man.
He did do Spider-Man and Superman.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, because you were a big comic book fan, right?
Right. I read a lot of. I'm easily 40 comic books behind, and they're in my backpack. And I started reading them. Like I read Spider-Man in junior high, right? I mean, I'm not made of stone. Everyone was reading it, but I never read them again until I met my fella, who is old school nerd, right? He's a game designer. He makes video games for a living, and he's always been a comic book guy. And so we'd go to the comic book store together, and he had a pull list of comics that he read every month. And then he was like, "Is there anything you like?" And so I started picking stuff, and they only take 20 minutes to read.
Oh, yeah.
So you end up, you can read 6 of them, and you've only killed an hour and a half, and you can still get some work done. You can still, and all the art's different. And comic books, I mean, I'm not probably telling anybody anything who loves comic books that they don't know, but they genuinely could be about anything.
Yeah.
And written by anyone. They've traditionally been the most inclusive thing, as much as stand-up, right?
Yeah.
Because anybody could fucking get up and did it at an open mic, and
2 years later have a special entry.
and 2 years later, it turns out you are Ms. Maisel. What happened?
It's amazing how many comics like gravitate towards like comic books and stuff. So like I get to talk to a lot of comics that say like that's their hobby, and this idea of like having another hobby is so important. Where like I was featured, like I started to get burnout. I was like, what do I do? Like I'm starting to have this burnout, and they're like, find a hobby.
What, in stand-up?
In stand-up.
And you're
like,
2 years in?
And I'm 2 years in. Yeah, right?
Oh, boy.
Well, I mean, that just means that you're dipped, man. That just means that you're just like, I have, because I remember it was 8 months. I was doing stand-up every night. The first 8 months I did stand-up. I got a 1.8 that semester. And luckily the club burned down. Thank God it was insured, you guys. What happened? Anyway, so, and then, but that slowed down. Like I don't know that I would ever get that same value. Like, because if you can do stand-up 6 or 7 nights a week for the first 8 months, that's almost invaluable. I mean, you will grow exponentially.
Yeah.
It'll count for as much as a couple of years. So, but it's hard to do that and have a job, or hard to do that.
And in LA.
And in LA, where you have to, if you want to do sets every night, and if you want to do multiple sets.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that room that they lock in the Valley?
They lock?
The 45-minute place.
No. Oh.
Everybody gets there's 8 spots. Everyone gets 5 minutes. It's $5. You have to stay for the whole show. The whole show's only 45 minutes. They lock the door.
Huh.
You have to stay for the whole 45 minutes. It costs $5, but you get to run your 5.
That's great.
In front of other comics, but trapped comics who are forced to listen. And then, and the guy has 3 rooms in the same.
Is that
strip mall.
Marty's? Marty.
No, it's in a strip mall. It's just some black box.
Okay.
I don't know the name of the guy, but
That's awesome. That's such an interesting concept. By the way, rest in peace to Marty's, which is closing down.
Yeah.
So if you need your stage time, you could come here to the Comedy Pop-Up Studio. We actually do an open mic in this room.
In this room. This is a good size room
right
for
there.
it.
Yeah, we have our little our stage that kind of sits in the middle now, and we just have maybe we'll have 8 to 10 people. But you know what I love about this space is you get to really workshop your stuff out. Yeah, and everybody's just
and
it's
if everybody's come, if everyone's come to watch it, they will listen to the jokes and look, and you'll get to sort of get almost as real a read as anything. Yeah. Maria Bamford's doing those afternoon shows at the Clubhouse, on Vermont. She's doing an hour at the Clubhouse at like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And she's like, anybody work Uber or Lyft and it has an hour to kill. It's free. Come on down if anybody wants to see me work on my new hour.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Maria for, even just like doing those like little independent rooms and stuff. There's not a lot of like big time comics that like really will support the indie scene. I saw Maria at Crane's Comedy, which have you done Crane's?
No, not offhand, but where is it?
It's down the street. It's on, I want to say it's on Flower or something. It's Harry, shout out to those guys, Harry Morose, Trevor Smith, like all those guys.
I'm sure I've tried it. Is it a bar?
It is a bar. I
feel like I've done it.
It's a Steelers bar.
Okay.
And it's downstairs. It's in
a sporting event.
Yeah.
There you go. Good luck.
No,
Hope it all
not
works
union
out.
workers.
Union. It's a union bar. I'm in.
It's all
They only fight the cop bar.
just a lot of greasy black hands on on a beer glasses. So this room, it's in an old bank vault. So what it is
I have done it.
yeah, so you have no cell phone reception down there.
Right.
But it only, if you have 25 people there, it feels completely packed. So to see like crazy comics go up down there,
yeah.
so shout out to them for doing their thing. We tried doing a show here.
Yeah.
And the turnout was less than spectacular, but it was still fun. It was still fun. I mean, any place that'll, let you do time is like, all right, it's dope. So I just saw Big Irish J at my very first comedy festival, the Big Sky Comedy Festival.
Big Sky, yeah.
Montana, right?
Oh, yeah.
How was it?
It was great.
Fun?
I was helping up. I've done it twice or competed in it twice. And then this year I was just helping out Lucas, who started it with Wayne Wilcox, is good buddy of mine. And so it started out where I was helping like judge some of the submission tapes. And then it kind of just evolved to where, hey, do you want to come out and help? And, I was like, all right, let's see. So yeah, it was great. Kira Sultanovich won. Shout out to her. She was awesome.
Yeah,
and
she's a murderer, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she'll destroy.
It was great. And I loved it because I got to see some buddies I hadn't seen for a while. Dan Bolger, who I started in Boston, and Dan's from Boston, and so funny. I took him to press, and we're doing the radio with the guy, and the guy didn't know how to. Do you know Dan?
I've met him, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, for those that don't know, Dan's a comic out of Boston, real kind of petite. I don't know if you want to say, but
compared to you.
Yeah, true. Yeah. King Kong's petite next to me, but he's kind of a thin dude, kind of short, wears glasses, kind of looks like a nerdy guy, and just so funny. And we're doing radio, and the guy's like, where are you from? And Dan's like, oh, Boston. He's like, oh, so you're used to the cold. He's like, yeah, the cold, racists, I'm used to it all. And the guy kind of was like, okay. And then
good for him.
But then Dan goes, yeah, this is Trump country, right? And the guy's like, ugh. And he goes, people say Trump's crazy about wanting to build the wall, but he goes, look at China. No Mexicans there. And the guy just had no idea what to do with it. And I'm just dying. I was like, oh, this makes it all worth it doing this press. But yeah, Big Sky's great. And Natasha's there, one of the comedy pop-up people.
Yeah, she's on our network.
Candace
Thompson was there. What's crazy about it, and I think this was such a great technique that Big Sky used, was the mandatory events.
Oh, yeah.
Because I hear, and like I said, that was my first festival, but I hear about other festivals that like a lot of those kind of side things are like optional. It's like, let's go to a trampoline park. Oh yeah, everybody has to go to the trampoline park. Like, that was no matter what injury. And there was somebody who broke his finger.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. I was trying to tell him that should be part of the judging. Like that should be one of the rounds. It's just like the mandatory events, and we'll see what happens.
I did that one have you done the one in Nebraska that Eddie Brill used to run?
Oh, is that at the Johnny Carson Theater or whatever? I haven't done it, but Great American.
Yeah. And it was like only the second or third year. So he was at the point where Eddie Brill wasn't telling anyone that it was a contest. B, it was 2.5 hours from the airport. And you had to drive with a happy hayseed. He would get like one of the locals to come pick you up who wanted to tell you about comedy. And I'm like, well, I'm going to fucking murder you. How about I don't want to talk to you at all. But I clearly, this is the second story where I am not the hero of this fucking story. It's like, who's a jackass? Me, turns out. And it was fun, but they had the extracurricular things, and they were like, oh no, they're mandatory. And I was like, I've been to a farm. You don't have to. I'm from Wisconsin. You don't have to drive me around to see what a hay bale looks like. I'm good. And they're like, you're coming. And I was like, and I'm coming. It turns out. So, and then there was this. And then I went for the wrong. We had like 2 shows one night, and there was a social event that was mandatory, and then that was during the first show. And so I was at the social event, and they're like, I think you're on this show, the first show. And I was like, oh, I thought. And they said, yeah, there's another social after this. And I was like, oh, okay, well, and it was the town's the size of South Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I'm from. And I was like, so it's like 6 blocks from here, so I'll just walk. And they're like, no, we'll drive you. And this woman, she was like, I'll drive you. And I was like, you just had 3.5 glasses of wine in an hour. How about no? And then so somebody else drove me. I was like, I know there's only 4 stop signs in this town, but I'm not getting in a car with you.
They were trying to take you out of the competition early.
Yeah,
they were trying to.
I know. I think I came in second, which was a deal. It was awesome because first place meant you had to come back. You got I think second place was first place was it was only $1,000. Second place was $800, and third place was $500. And first place, you had to come back. I was like, nope, $200, you keep it. And there was some New York kid who was really funny. I can't remember. And then third place was Rob Hayes. Do you know Rob?
Oh, I know Rob from Atlanta.
Yeah. And he lives here now. He's got a writing gig, I heard.
You know how I met Rob was I did it 2 years. I did the Bay Area Black Comedy Competition in Oakland, and
wait, are you secretly? Are you infiltrating?
I'm appropriating contests.
You're having a black experience in a giant white man's body.
Yeah, I was the only white guy in the finals, and I met Rob there. Noah Garden Schwartz, who's a Jewish comic out of New York. I think he might. No, I think he's still in New York. Met him there, and it was interesting because so I started in Boston, then I was in Seattle, and then moved down here, and I got more spots and work and connections from the Bay Area Black Comedy Competition than any other contest or festival I ever did. It's crazy. And
that's why you do them, right? To get sort of in with the bookers and the whatevers. I only do it because it's comedy camp.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can finally get to hang out with a bunch of comics that you like, and you get to have lunch. I did Moon Tower.
Oh, yeah.
And so I got every day, I had lunch with Marie Bamford and Aparna Nancherla and Aaron Foley, and I think Kira was it was wonderful. It was a delight.
Yeah. It was great.
So how do you guys feel about the competition aspect of it? In terms of do you think because it's funny and this kind of happened to a Big Sky where it's after the competition, it's the vibe kind of changes.
Oh, yeah.
It's we've all been buddy, and then all of a sudden now we're ranked.
I always look at it as, and this is kind of how I've always been in comedy. I'm some people think I'm funny, some won't. I can't control that. The only thing I can control is how hard I work, and I always say I just don't want anybody to outwork me. So with festivals, somebody told me a long time ago, they were you can't win them all, but you can get booked at them all. So I always say all I want is, as long as people get me and my sense of humor. When I did the Bay Area, I was in the finals and I opened with a joke that it wasn't necessarily shitting on black people, but it was it's the whole saying, once you go black, you never go back. I was like, yeah, you know how many times I heard that in Oakland? I was like, I told my buddy I was going to open with this, and he's like, you're going to open with that. And I was like, I'm either going to have to dig out of a hole and we'll see what happens, or they'll laugh and everything will be fine. But I'm like, either way, it's my comedy. They'll get it.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, once you go black, you never go back. I'm like, how cocky are black people to just assume that was referring to white people? How do you know a white guy didn't, or a white girl didn't hook up with a black guy? She's like, oh my God, I slept with my first black guy. How was it? It was awful. Once you go black, you never go back. I'll never do that again, right? Luckily, they laughed. And so everything went fine after that.
Yeah.
But, it's
There's nothing wrong with that joke.
No. Well, yeah. I mean,
what you did was you addressed that there were black people and white people in the world.
Yeah.
Oh my God, heaven forfend. Yeah. That's a great joke.
I mean, he said the N-word 5 times in it, but
the weird thing is that I should have just fucking laughed instead of going, interesting. Let's dissect it. Let's talk about it and see how about you just fucking laugh at a funny joke, Cation?
Yeah, and I don't know if you're the same with when you do competitions, but I mean, the whole competition vibe. I just once I done with my set, it sounds weird, but I honestly kind of don't give a fuck. I can't do anything once it's done.
No, it's over then. And the weird thing about the last competition I did was that Great American whatever.
Right.
And I didn't know it was a competition. Wanted to win the competition, as did absolutely everyone there. We all wanted. The money's great, but you got more stage time.
Yeah.
You got 2 more sets.
Yeah.
You're like, that's all any comic wants. Yeah. We're like, it turns out we're not in this for the money. We would like another 7 minutes.
Yeah, so they can see me more and get,
And then I win because I get to tell those jokes I wrote. I spent a good portion of my life writing these fucking jokes. Yeah. Could I tell them again? Great. And so when I made it to the semifinals, I was like, I get another set. And the people who did not make the semifinals were like, well, I want to go home now. I mean, they were like, it was kind of just, you ever go to a comedy show and you're just like, I wish I could get up.
Oh, yeah.
And you're just like, it's not that the show isn't good or there's any sort of, you're just like, no, I want to. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's that hunger.
It's
Yeah, that's funny. So like Big Sky had so many great shows. Like multiple. It was funny. One time I was in the elevator after one of the days with Kira. So just me and Kira like going back up to her, and she goes, "Oh yeah." She's like, "So breaking news." She's like, "We get to do another set right here in the elevator." She's like, "This is the last set of."
That's hilarious.
Because I think she had done like 3 sets that day or 4 sets that day. Awesome. So she was just like harping on that.
Whenever I go to a festival, I always tell whoever the festival organizers are, I'm like, I'm here. If you were to need me to do more sets, I would do more sets.
Yeah.
And sometimes I get extra sets because of it.
Oh, yeah.
So I would recommend to all comics, feel free to offer up. I have an emergency set list in my bag right now just in case there was a pop-up right here. What am I? Not going to do a set?
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, that's what I like. I did Big Pine Comedy Festival, and I was telling them right before Big Sky, and
shout out to Jack and Hillary.
Yeah, exactly. I love them, and I think I told Hillary like, or she would be like, "Hey, would you be cool doing this, or could you?" I told her, I go, Hillary, anything you need, I'm good. I'm here.
You're here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm here. Whatever you need, I'm a yes man. So just let me know. So, and the other thing with competitions, the other thing I remember, I was doing Seattle International, and Joe List was in my heat or whatever.
Yeah.
And great comic, and I always remember this. He got done with his set, had a great set, and he had some joke, something about related to driving while you've been drinking or after you've been drinking. And for whatever reason, Joe that night didn't move or didn't have a high score or something. And I just remember one of the judges, which was like a local person, was talking to me, and he was like, "Yeah, that one guy, as soon as he mentioned drinking and driving, I guess this guy's like brother or something had gotten hit by a drunk driver." So you never know what has happened in the judge's past. So I have no control over that. So
the weirdest thing is when they're comics or they're bookers. The one in Nebraska, it was Bert Haas from Zanies, and it was Kelly Carlin, George Carlin's daughter.
Oh yeah,
and it was it Eddie himself, or was it no, it was Richard from Hermosa.
Oh, okay.
Comedy and Magic Club. So the guy who went up front, who was up first, was, and I've spaced his name, but he's.
I mean, that's cool. You didn't care.
I didn't care. Nice fucking name.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
He didn't make it into the comic.
Don't worry. He destroyed. He murdered. He was on fire, except that they were a little cold. Just because they were cold, he had to go first.
Right.
They didn't take it into account, which means he didn't move on, which literally the stunned look on his face. I've been there. I mean, everyone, you're just stunned where you're like, pretty sure I knocked it out of the park. I think I did. No, all right.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, it's fine. I mean, so any given Sunday to some extent was stand up anyway. So I mean, there's what's going through the judges' minds. It's what happened in their day. You might flub up a line or a word, and it'll eat the set for some reason.
I mean, the good thing with that guy is he had such a great set, being the first comic, that you remember him.
Right.
Just not his name.
Turns out he's working. Yeah. He's fine. Everybody's fine. Everybody's got to work.
That was me, Jackie. You don't remember?
Oh my God. Wait a minute. That happened. Okay, so I'm in Indiana. There was a short-lived club in downtown Indiana when Crackers moved out of their space. The guys that owned the building in downtown Indiana opened a comedy club for no reason. They were making all the money in the world from their dance club. Oh, yeah. And on the third floor was like a pool thing. And then the first level of bar was a comedy club that had been Crackers for years. And the guy was like, "Would you come and perform?" And I said, "What is it? Pay?"
Yeah.
And so he put me up, and I come and I perform, and 4 people per show, 5 shows.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right.
So by Saturday, first show, I walk out, I was like, "Is anybody here?" And there's like, "Yeah, there's 8. And then second show, Saturday, the first show, 4 of the people from first show stayed for second show. So they were like, "No, that was great. We're going to stay again." I was like, "Well, let me run this by you." And so... but the guy who featured for me is a great comic out of Michigan named Robert Jenkins. I don't know if you know Robert Jenkins, but he is a delight. He's wonderful, and he's super smart, really funny, but he's a giant black man. And I met him not even 3 months later, where we were both doing a Yoder festival in Toledo, and he says, "Hey, Jackie, how's it going?" And I was like, "Hey, I can't," and he goes, You're kidding me. I'm a 6'6" black man. And I said, wait a minute. Did you have the conceal and carry joke and the Trump in the checkout and the self-checkout? And he goes, that's what you were. Look at me. And
we remember bits. Yeah.
Right, I remember bits. It's like Dragon Riders of Pern, man. I remember the dragon, don't remember the riders.
My assumption is that nobody remembers my name. Like that's
me too.
Yeah, I'm just like I always go to introduce my. Oh yeah, I know you're my mom.
Well, I went with Big Irish J because Hollingsworth people will say Hollingsworth or Hollandworth and so I was just like Big Irish J. It's also like a visual thing, you know. If you see me, Big Irish guy, all right, Big Irish J or whatever.
It's catchy.
Yeah,
I feel like I knew your name before. Well, way before I had ever met you, but way before I even know who you were. I was just like, oh yeah, Big Irish.
The other thing too, though, is then I always say this: Big J Okerson is the first Big J.
Is he the first Big J?
Yeah,
I wondered about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And and he's a great dude. And
I noticed you weren't wearing your knuckle gloves.
Yeah, exactly.
I was thrown off by it.
It's funny though because I remember one time I was at Stand Up Live and the guy brings me up Big J Okerson. I'm like, oh God, so now I got to explain this. Or one of my credits, because I always try and keep the credits easy. I always just give one. I'm like, just winner best of Boston. It's the easiest thing. And I'm like, I always say, if you mess it up, nobody gives a shit. Sometimes people say you won the Boston Comic. Nobody cares, right? So I was at the Stratosphere, and I forget who the host was. He's like, our next comic coming to the stage. He's visiting us from Texas. So I'm like, is like somebody doing a guest spot? And he goes, he won Best of Austin. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, there's something always gets messed up, you know? And I'm just like, Jesus, what are you going to do though, you know? But
you're still going to go up.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever I give my name and my intro, I'm just like, whatever you say, I will go on stage. Yeah. So it can't possibly matter.
Yeah.
You know, and I get they massacre my name, but more often than not, it was coming up. I mean, not so much since I headlined, but coming up, it was always some banana head MC who's like, yeah, I'd fuck her. And you're like, hey, stop talking. How about, and I was like, and then you have to follow. And it's usually, and it's weird. The MC will often do, you know, like when they do like a weird, and it's usually either the darkest or grossest joke in the world where you're like, hey, there was some momentum from the guy who just finished and he had written a 30, right? And then you're going to come up and do some weird one-off. Unless the feature ate it.
Yeah.
The MC, just keep it moving.
Yeah. Unless it's a black show.
And then the only black show, I've only been to one like black comedy club that was in Atlanta.
Okay.
And so Marie and I were doing we were doing the thing next to the hamburger joint. Whatever. Tiny room. You know, whatever. So and I was just featuring for her, and then Joelle Johnson, who's a New York comic, and she was like, hey, and Maria comes up, she says, hey, Joelle and I are going to go to this club. And I thought she meant a dance club. And I looked, and Marie Bamford isn't dance club people. I'm not dance club people. And I looked at her and said, you guys are going clubbing? And she looked at me and said, what did you think? No, we're going to another comedy club. And I was like, oh, okay. So Joelle drove us, and it was essentially just all black comics, all black audience. Right. And I had my emergency set list. Absolutely nobody wanted me to go up. They wanted Maria to go up, but she was like, not a chance in hell. And then the MC, whose name I'm also spacing because I got nothing. I got 600 people a week I meet. So
is it all black people that you don't remember?
These are all white people. And, the guy from Chicago was Italian. He was a fucking Goomba from Chicago. And that guy, he was a walking meatball, that guy. It was very, very funny. And but he talked a lot about being Italian. I remember his act.
Yeah.
But so anyway, but the weird thing about the black comedy club, so now it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and Joelle's like, I'm gonna hang out, and they're gonna put me up in 2 or 5. I can't, but I'm gonna get up. And so we're like, hey, we're gonna go back and crash. And a cab would not fucking come.
Oh yeah.
Bastards. And it was pre-Lyft. Pre-Lyft Uber, so
Detroit. I forget the club in Detroit. Same type of story. My buddy Harold, one of my favorite like heckle stories. So Ty Barnett, and
love Ty Barnett,
great comic,
also on the network.
Oh yeah, that's right. And so his buddy of ours, mutual buddy of ours, this guy Harold Gomez, who was also kind of like a mentor to me when I moved out to Seattle. excuse me, and Harold won the Seattle International Comedy Competition. Anyways,
in Austin.
Yeah, exactly. So this is when I think Ty had been on Last Comic Standing, and Harold's featuring for him. They're in Detroit. They do their show, and then this local black promoter is at their show. He's like, "Hey man, we got another show over here, black show over here. You guys want to come over and do some time?" And Ty's like, he's like, "I'll come hang out, but I'm not gonna do time." Harold, my buddy, he was like, who at the time, I guess, like, it was the big thing, like Harold doesn't bomb, right? So Harold's like, "Man, fuck that. I'm a soldier for this art. I'm a soldier. I'm gonna do time. Let's go." So they go over there, and Harold comes, Ty's sitting in the back watching. "All right, this next comic comes to stage, visiting us from Seattle, Washington. Give it up, Harold Gomez." Harold walks up. He says nothing. They give him nothing, no clap, nothing. He's like, so as he's walking out, he's like, "Damn." And so he says he does his first joke, nothing. He says does his second joke, nothing. And this guy right in the front row looking up at him, I'm quoting here. I got to say the N-word just so you get the effect. But this dude in the very front row looking up at Harold just goes, "Boo, nigga, boo," like that. And Harold just like, he looks at the DJ and he goes, "DJ, play something." And the DJ's like, "What?" He goes, "Just play something." So the DJ starts playing this music, and he goes, "All the ladies in the house say ho," and they go ho, and he goes, "All the hoes in the house say ladies." So he gets a little bit of something. He's like, "All right, DJ, cut that." Does another joke, bombs. And the guy in the front row looking up at him and goes, "I said, boo, nigga, boo," like that. So Harold says, he goes, "Next person in here that boos me, I'm getting off this stage and whipping their ass." Everybody boo, 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 the whole place. So he gets off stage.
To fight 112 people.
And Ty is dying laughing in the back, right? So they're about to leave, and the promoter's sitting there, he's sitting there saying goodbyes and everything, and he's like thanking Ty, giving him love and everything. And then he has the promoter, I guess, had his arms crossed, and Harold comes up to give him like a fist pound. He goes, "Hey man," and the guy just kept his arms crossed. So Harold just gave him Harold just gave him like a fist bump on his elbow, and then just kept it moving. But
good call, keep moving.
Oh, it's my favorite. Boo.
Have you guys seen that thing on Amazon Prime? It's called "You've Got to Kill" or "I Need You to Kill." It's with Chad Daniels, Tom Segura, and Pete Lee.
I just watched that not too long ago. It's great.
It's out. It's a documentary. The comedy club guy in Minneapolis brought those three to Hong Kong to do Hong Kong, Singapore, and Macau. Mm-hmm. And then he also went to a couple, talked to the local comedy promoters. And it is fascinating because the way this guy, J. Elvis Weinstein, who used to be on Mystery Science Theater 3000, he directed it. Mm-hmm. And the way he cut it is that and I remember watching it going, why is he showing the same jokes of the three comics? He's showing them in different venues doing the same three jokes. And then the payoff, and I'm not going to blow it, but the payoff is fucking outstanding. Oh my God, it's worth $3.99 or whatever the hell it is on Amazon. It's got "I Need You to Kill."
You're talking about the Segura thing?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It was Chad Daniels, and Chad and Pete both came up like next generation, like 2 generations under me, maybe 1 or 2 generations under me in Minneapolis, because I'm a Minneapolis comic, and easily a couple of my favorite comics.
Oh yeah.
Chad, I will not leave the room. Yeah. I cannot, because the thing is even if I've heard the material before, I just want to hear what's going to happen.
Yeah, that is a great documentary. It's so good.
Have you guys gotten to perform out of the country?
I did in Ireland.
All right, so how is it performing out of the country?
Well, let me tell you. I just got back. I did a set in Hanoi.
Oh, damn.
In Vietnam. So I got paid in this T-shirt and a tax write-off. Yeah. So a tax and pay Democrat, but I'm not a moron.
What's your favorite place out of all the places you performed out of the country? What's your favorite place?
Oh man, that's ridiculous because I did last year. I did Iceland and Ireland. And did you do the Dublin Comedy Festival? Is that what you?
No, I was my grandfather's an immigrant from Ireland, and
because it turns out you're big and Irish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the door's open. So we went out there to see my family's. I went out there to like my old roommate is from Ireland, moved back there, and went out there to see my family like old homestead and
sure. Go look at the ancestral
all that stuff. Yeah, exactly. And so once I knew I was going out there, I just hit up like everything I could, and It was called the God, I forget the name of it, but it's like on the second floor of this bar. But they set it up like a comedy club, and a nice little turnout, and it was great.
That's great. I did the Dublin Comedy Festival, which was actually called the Vodafone Comedy Festival, and then we drove around Ireland, and then I picked up another set down in York at. In Castletown, Bearhaven, the best name of any town ever. Castletown, Bearhaven, Ireland. And then we went to Iceland, and I did a set in a basement in downtown Reykjavik at some comedy club.
Wow.
And that was super fun. And then I did a 9-week run through Australia. Like
that I bet was so fun.
It was amazing. With like Stuart Lee and David O'Doherty and Greg Fleet. Those are the sort of the bigger names. Those first two guys are UK guys, and Greg Fleet's an Australian guy, and then a bunch of younger Aussie comics, and I think I was the only woman, but it was 9 weeks, and we drove and flew and went to weird like mining towns and factory towns, and it was outstanding. Like got to go snorkeling in the Great Barrier Reef, and they were like, you could hug a koala, and I was like, I don't want to.
What? Oh God, I want to hug a koala.
I don't want to. You know what I have to say this about wild animals? Go hang out with each other. I'll look at you from afar. I always think wild animals are looking at people going, why don't you find another person to hang out with? Why don't you do that? What do you want to swim with the dolphins for? We're going to go hang out with other dolphins. So anyway.
In those places, how were the audiences? Like, were there any audience that you thought maybe would be difficult, and then like they turned out relatively like?
No, they were all fine, but it's all learned skill, you know, especially the Australian one was kind of the hardest one because I felt like I should, like I didn't cater enough to the differences, because the thing about Australia and probably everywhere is that it's cheaper to have to buy U.S. television than to make your own. So it's not like they don't get every joke in the whole wide world, but they would like you to call it a jumper, not a sweater. You know? Yeah. Like, and I did probably 4 years ago, I did 10 days in Hong Kong, and it was right before that documentary. And I said to Lewis, why aren't you bringing me? And he said, you were just in Hong Kong. And I'm like, there's 11 million people in Hong Kong. Yeah. Most of them haven't seen me. And it's like, well, you gotta bring those guys for. And so they're all, it's a learned, like I did the thing in Hanoi, and it was weird. It was at a bar called the Standing Bar in Hanoi, across from the lake that John McCain crashed his plane into.
Wow.
Fucking weird. And but then I found out that John McCain has crashed 5 planes during the Vietnam War. He might not have been a great pilot. He was really good at surviving. But it might not have. And then, so it was all expats, right? It's all British and Australian and U.S. And I did, and what you learn, like I have this joke where one of the punchlines is unless you were 11 years old working in a Nike factory. Oops.
Oh, yikes.
And I just stared at them working in a Nike factory. And then I just stared at them. I said, you know how you learn things right on stage? What needs to be said, what really doesn't. And
I don't
laugh though.
I don't do like political stuff, and the only thing I had was I tell a true story about from online dating. I went out with this girl that lied about her height, and she ended up being a little person, right? And so I say in the joke, I'm like, she said she was 5'2", and we meet, and she's 4'8". And the guy comes up to me and goes, I don't know what 5'2" or 4'8" means.
Metrics.
Yeah. So then I was like, okay, next time I did a show, I was like, yeah, she said she was like this tall, because I'm not going to take the time to learn what it is. You know, I'm such a dummy.
Heaven forbid you memorize, you Google something.
Yeah, exactly.
Like what am I, 47 centimeters? Like that.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, yeah, she said she was this tall, but she was actually this, you know. And but I was like, it was kind of cool. I was like, oh God, that's interesting. You know, that was the only thing that really didn't translate, you know, and had to make an adjustment on, but everything else was fine.
Yeah. Everybody, I mean, Isn't comedy the language of No, stop it.
You know, one of my the things that I find the most fascinating about comedy, like I was a huge comedy fan for ever since I was a little kid, but I love when people have to be very cerebral about it and edit it and edit on the spot. I love hearing the same joke from a comic and how it's different as the years go by and stuff. To me, that's one of the most difficult things that a lot of people don't pick up on.
Oh yeah. I like the in the moment stuff. One of my favorite comics to watch is Don Gavin out of Boston. You know Don?
I don't.
They call him the Godfather of Boston comedy. He's amazing. I think Gary Goldman says that's his favorite comic. Craig Fitzsimmons says that. I think Rogan says that too. But he just a crusher. But he drinks when he's on stage, and sometimes when he drinks, he repeats jokes just because he's getting hammered.
And he's 53 years old.
Yeah, and my favorite Gavin story is he's on stage, repeats a joke because he's been drinking, and these college kids, one guy in the front row, he goes, "You already told that one." And Gavin just grabs his drink, kind of swirls it around, and he just goes, "Oh yeah? The record's 6." It just takes a fucking drink. My favorite. Just not giving a fuck.
Stuart Lee used to do this bit about a UK guy, right?
Yeah.
British comic, and he does this, and it was about some missionary came to his door in London, knocked on the door, and he answered the door, and they said, "Jesus is the answer. What is the question?" And then and he's a big silent guy. He's he can sit in the silence. I've never been able to do it, right? It's Tig Notaro, people who can just sit in the silence on stage where you're no, I got to fill it up.
Yeah.
And but he just sits in the silence. He goes, "Well, can I guess what the question is?" And the missionary supposedly says yes. And he goes, "Is the question what sandal was worn in the early 70s by hippies?" The blank sandal. No, that wasn't it. Okay, can I guess again? And so he goes through several of these, and we're in Perth, and some Australian dude in the audience yells out, "Get to it, mate!" And he looks at him and he goes, "No, usually I do about 5 punchlines for that, but for you people, 11. And then he literally bam, bam.
Oh, that's the best.
I do enjoy when an audience is somewhat punished.
Oh yeah,
by a comic. My favorite is of course Doug Stanhope, 4th and B, in San Diego. 4th and B was set up poorly. 4th and B was this giant room, sat 1,200 people, and they would have an MC, a feature, a break.
Oh.
The worst idea in comedy.
Jesus.
Everybody goes, they've already seen 40 minutes of stand-up. Yeah. They come back, the MC does another 5 or 10, brings up the headliner for 45. Well, stand-up gets up, and they're hammered, and the sweet spot was always the feature spot, right?
Yeah.
Right? Essentially, it was headlining, and then they would talk amongst themselves for the rest of the 45 minutes.
Right.
So stand-up's up there, and he's just talking, and they're talking about, and he tries to shut him up, and finally goes, "Would you guys like the feature better?" That was an error on his part. Because now they start going, "Yeah, bring that guy back. He's the best." And they're just yelling, and finally Stanhope goes, "You don't walk me. I walk you." And he spent an hour offending 900 people. He
great.
walked 900 of 1,200 people. It was perfect. He did an hour.
That's great.
And then he got his nickel.
The most epic moments. Well, the legendary one is Bill Burr.
Oh yeah.
And,
that thing in Philly or whatever.
Philly, yeah. Where he just started because I guess they were just booing everybody. He just kept hammering and hammering and hammering. I don't know. Sometimes it's that's what I want to do. It's sometimes you just want to yell it, especially with my bar show that I produce.
I heard one great heckle. I was listening in the back, and I was like, all right, that one's pretty good. I won't say the comic that it was, this comic headlining, but this comic is known for being a kind of a pretty laid back comic, right? And kind of happy go lucky.
Can I guess? No, go. Sorry.
Afterwards, yes.
Okay.
I'll tell you afterwards. So
Jesus.
Yeah. So this comic's on stage, and to the right is a girl that's been she's been talking through the thing. And so at this point, she's talking through this guy's set. And so eventually he goes, "Hey, what's going on over there?" And the girl says, great response. She goes, "Oh, we're just waiting for the headliner to come on."
Boom.
And this guy went from happy-go-lucky chill to just going, he says, quote, "I am the fucking headliner, you cunt. Get the fuck out." And I was in tears in the back.
Oh man, she busted. That's
a great.
Whenever a heckler gets me, you know, I'm always like, oh no, you win.
Yeah,
Touche.
yeah.
Because if you get pissy about it, you're going to turn the rest of the audience away from you. And, yeah, that makes sense.
I felt that way at his show. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Right. Well, but the thing is all you can do is go, and 3 points, and please shut up.
Now, let me ask you this: because you've been to 30 years, 25? Yeah. Okay. Because I've noticed in myself, I feel like it's gone in a wave. Like, I think like when I was between 0 to 5 years, like dealing with a heckler in my head, as I'm like dealing with the heckler in my head, I'm also like thinking, okay, keep it light, keep it funny. You know, you got to be funny, keep it funny. And then maybe for like the next 3 years, I was like, fuck them. I don't give a fuck if it's funny. I fucking want them to die, you know? And I feel like now I'm back more like, let's keep it fun and everything.
Right.
I don't know.
It's definitely that. And then when you get put in a position where you're not allowed to be mean, that also is super terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're like, I did an Indian casino in northern Michigan, like in one of the Indian, whatever, in the UP. So I'm up there, and usually there's people there's usually guards because it's a casino, and you could ask them to, and there were two super drunky magoos sitting in the front, and they're talking to each other, to me. They don't know what the hell's going on. They're just hammered. And so I tried to shut them up. You know, there's like 4 levels of heckler where you're like, you ignore it. Then you can't ignore it. So you say something like, hey, zip it. And then you go back and you sort of hit them a little hard but funny. And then the 4th level is you make them cry or you ask them to leave. Those are your 2 choices. So I'm at 4th level with these people, and there's no one to tell them to leave. There's no guard. There's no guard to take them out. And I am not allowed to swear.
Oh, God, one of those gigs.
It was one of those gigs. And so I fell to my knees, and I made the sign of the cross, and I went, please, God, bless these men away from this room. May they win at all of their endeavors. And I prayed them out of the fucking room.
And they left?
Yep.
Oh, fuck.
Get out. And I've tried to reproduce it. It doesn't really work. And it's always awkward getting back up.
Oh my! Yeah. When I was in Seattle, I was the house MC at Parlor Live for like 3 years. This comedy club up there,
right.
And so I had a comfort up there because it was almost like, this is my club, it's my house, you know, I can do whatever, right? I can't do any wrong because we have so many people coming every week. And the head of security, we like got in a rhythm with how we would handle hecklers. It was this huge black dude, and so if somebody was like kept talking, I kept addressing it. If I could see him starting to head over, I would like, I don't know how I would get into it, but I would basically say to someone, hey, you know, so I also do magic, and the person would be like, oh, I go, yeah, I'm going to make a big black guy appear behind you, and right as I would say it, he would put his hand on their shoulder, and the guy would just be like, what the fuck?
And the worst part is Jackie would never remember his name.
Yeah. And I have no idea what that guy's name is.
Well, we're headed towards the end of the podcast.
Damn,
right,
flying by.
Yeah.
It's always fun. First off, I want to thank you guys for coming on, because this was so much fun. I always love, you know, hearing these stories, and it gets me excited for doing stuff. Right. But so first, let's go ahead and do plugs, and then I got some rapid fire questions I'm going to ask you guys, and we'll go from there.
Should I go first?
Go for it.
All right, JackieKashian.com. You can also find it at FamilyPetAncestry.com, where you can find if your cat came over in the Mayflower. Anyway, FamilyPetAncestry.com.
Wait, that's a real thing?
Yeah, I bought FamilyPetAncestry.com.
Oh, I love you.
And it goes to JackieKashian.com.
I love it.
And then I have 2 podcasts, The Dork Forest, where I interview people about their dorkdoms, what they love a lot. And then I have one where it's just about stand-up. Lori Kilmartin and I, we've both been doing stand-up for 1,000 years, and we bitch about it. So Jackie and Lori show, or The Dork Forest. Thank you. And I do stand-up all over the place. I think this week when it comes out, I'm opening for Maria in New York. And then the following week, I'm headlining in Bloomington at the Comedy Attic.
Comedy Attic, December 13th through the 15th.
And I'm at bigirishj.com or jhollingsworth.com, which directs to bigirishj.com. It's not as cool as family ancestry. That's I love that. When this comes out, I'll be at the Stratosphere, LA Comedy Club at the Stratosphere. And then for New Year's, I'm going to be at the Mopop in Seattle with a buddy of mine, Ralph Porter, and a couple other comics. We're doing the New Year's Eve show there.
Doing work. Sounds great. All right. So we end every show with some quick fire questions. Like I said, Ron G has a saying on the show that is no small talk. So these are going to be, you can take it whatever direction you want. But the first question is, if you could get coffee with somebody dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, God.
Would it be a black person? It's
I want the person like I want my coffee. It's black.
Wait, if you get coffee with anyone you want, I don't know. I just had Vietnamese coffee. It was amazing. So somebody, Ho Chi Minh. There you go.
Dude, somebody posted something like if you could have lunch with, and I don't know what made me think about it, but then I just got sad. I was like, oh, my grandparents, because I missed them. And then I just start tearing up. I'm like, oh, God. But that probably would be my grandmother and my grandfather.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Way to bring it down, Jay.
Bring it down.
What an
How about
asshole.
Dick Cavett? I'm gonna send you to lunch with Dick Cavett.
And on that note, it's over. No, I'm joking. All right, what smell reminds you of home?
Jesus.
Oh, God.
The smell of Jesus.
Well, it would remind me of my dad. Marlboro cigarettes with Wrigley's Double Mint gum. That would remind me of my dad.
I guess roast chicken and pilaf and the sound of the football game.
Yeah. All right. If you weren't a comic, what would your career be?
Well, I taught martial arts for 12 years. I had a school for a couple years, so it might be that. Maybe.
Probably like a high school social studies teacher that the kids hope they didn't get.
Ancestry, pet ancestry, yeah.
FamilyPetAncestry.com, you guys. Come on out. Make sure I don't have to do it.
The developer. By the way, your martial arts history, and we couldn't touch on it in this episode. Listen to Future Role Model with Natasha Prohanson.
Oh, yeah.
The Big Irish J episode, because he talks about that. I was like completely fascinated
so crazy
when I heard it. Yeah, I'd never listened to the podcast because I wasn't here for that recording.
Well, it's good that you promote it and support it.
No. But I listened to because I listened to. People ask me, they're like, "Do you listen to podcasts?" I was like, "I listen to 20 a week live in a studio."
Yeah.
It's rough, but yeah, that was a great episode. It was very good. And the last question, which is my favorite question to ask, if you could go back in time and give barely starting in comedy you a piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't forget to have a life.
That's good. I think the best advice I ever heard, but I wouldn't know how to use it. You'll know what I mean. I wouldn't know how to use it as a new comic, but the best advice I ever heard was when people ask you who's your favorite comic, if you are not your own favorite comic, change your act.
Yeah. Damn straight.
And I was like, damn. But I'd be like, well, I don't know what that means.
If you go to FamilyPetAncestry.com,
I love it.
Just my website.
You're going to look at the numbers and that's going to have like 20,000 more hits than your regular.
How do you look at the numbers? Anyway, so you go down to the left. There's an advice thing, and it's the first advice I ever received from the first woman comic I ever worked with, Vanda Michalowski. And it's an amazing. I have it framed in my bathroom. Quite honestly, it's framed in my house. It's amazing. It's like 12 things about doing stand up, and you could use it for plumbing. You could use it as advice for anything. So check out the advice.
I'll definitely check that out.
Great cliffhanger to go.
Yeah.
Go check that out.
Good.
That's a great.
Always be plugging. Good.
That was awesome.
Step to my website.
That's the way that I trick everybody into giving me advice. Because I'm like barely starting. But once again, I want to thank you guys for coming to the Comedy Pop-Up Podcast. Jackie Kashian, Big Irish J.